Angeline stepped into the room and removed the lid of the nearest container, hoping it was empty. But it was enamel-lined and full of an evil-looking dark liquid. Wrinkling her nose at the liquid's faint metallic odour, she started to slide the lid back, but stopped when a floating object, pale and wax-like, caught her eye. Impulsively she jabbed at the object with a fingernail and then regretted it, immediately wiping the nail on her jeans. In the meantime, the object had started to tumble in the liquid, and she glimpsed an attached gold ring. She quickly replaced the lid and took one step back. That wasn't Tom's ring, she assured herself. He wore no jewellery at all, so that hand, or the remains of a hand, could not be his. She moved to the next steel vat, her apprehension building, but it was only half full of liquid, what had to be some kind of acid, and could therefore not contain a man's body, or even the chemically degraded remains of one. The same was true of the third vat, which was also only half filled with dark red syrup. The trolley next drew her attention. From a distance, its top shelf had looked like the one underneath, except for the thin plastic cover. That now seemed was wrong. There was only one covered object, and it was in the shape of a human body. With her heart thumping, wondering what she would do if it was Tom's body, she peeled back the sheet. Tears immediately filled her eyes. "Oh no," she whispered. "Please no." She stared at the figure on the trolley, at first unable to move a muscle, tears running down her cheeks and into her mouth. It was a woman physically like her, with a small face, a body, and brown eyes with long lashes. The woman's head had been shaved, and at several places on her stubbled scalp, points of dried blood had turned black. Angeline touched her own scalp. Her hair was thicker now, but she remembered those tiny lumps she'd found during her first night in hospital, seemingly harmless pimples, whose significance Tom later explained. Brain surgery. Unlike the other victims, however, this woman had not been mutilated, unless a caesarean section can be considered mutilation, although her treatment had been far from voluntary and humane. Her eyes were wide with terror, her tongue protruded beyond her lips, and her bloodless face was contorted grotesquely, as if she had died in one final explosion of agony. The remains of a placenta and part of an umbilical cord had been carelessly draped across her chest. "I'll be dead soon too, if I don't get out of here," she thought. A crash and a rumble made Angeline jump. At the door she peeked into the corridor. Alexa was at the other end of the passageway, leaning a sheet of steel plate against the door jamb. The tool belt was still around her waist, but a flashlight and a hammer replaced the tranquilizer gun. Angeline watched as she disappeared around the corner and then returned wheeling a trolley. 2 bare feet, definitely a man's feet, protruded from under a cloth on the trolley's top shelf. Tom. Alexa crossed to the other side of the corridor and a key rattled in a lock. Angeline eased the door shut as Alexa reappeared and picked up the steel sheet. "She'll be bringing Tom's body in here any minute for sure." For a moment, Angeline stood with her back to the door, her mind in turmoil. Perhaps she should just give up, let Alexa do with her what she wanted, drill holes in her head, whatever. After all, she had been kept alive this long, so her life might not be in danger. Besides, there was no way out. She was trapped. She found herself staring at the trolley, her gaze suddenly shifting to the vat near it. No, there was one way out, although it was not a pleasant one. "Please forgive me," she mouthed to the motionless human form as she wheeled the trolley toward the second vat. She took a deep breath before she removed the lid. Then she lifted the woman's feet over the trolley's end rail and pulled the body toward the vat so the feet were resting on its stainless steel rim. Back at the other end of the trolley, she lifted the woman by her shoulders and pushed. The body began a slow-motion slide toward the dark liquid. From outside came another sound, of something being trundled down the corridor. It could be Alexa approaching this room, about to enter it, she thought. With the body now precariously balanced over the vat's edge, she pushed as hard as she could. At first nothing happened. Then the body suddenly tipped forward and plopped, feet first, into the vat, splashing drops of red liquid everywhere, including onto her t-shirt. The fabric instantly turned green and disintegrated. Only a few drops, she assured herself, as the skin underneath one drop began to sting. So I'll get a scar. That could be a lot better than whatever Alexa has in store for me. The body was in the liquid now, but the head was still in the air. Angeline pushed down on the head, but the torso refused to sink further, and the reason the body had not yet been dumped in the acid was suddenly clear. Rigor mortis, or the stiffening of muscles after death, had made it too rigid to fit in the vat. She had read about that somewhere, probably in one of Tom's novels. She replaced the vat's lid, but it stood up a few centimetres. At that moment, the light in the room went out and then came on again. From a distance, the vat will look right, she told herself as she took one step backward and silently flopped onto the trolley, pulling the sheet over her head while simultaneously assuming the same unnatural pose as the woman, with her legs apart and one arm sticking out at an odd angle. But the trolley continued to roll backward as the door opened, and she had also not covered herself completely. One eye and part of her right cheek were exposed, and it was too late to do anything about it. She could see Alexa at the edge of her vision now. The big woman pushed the trolley with Tom's body into the corner near the door, and then turned and stared in the direction of the refrigeration unit. Alexa was staring at her.